I want to go right now to Steve Wynn. Again, just to put Steve Wynn in perspective in this town and how big a deal he is, keep in mind that he has overseen construction of or operations for all the biggest name brands you see behind me in this shot. I was just reviewing it here, but they include the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City, the Mirage, Treasure Island, the Bellagio. I could go on and on. The Wynn Resort, and now very big in Macau, all over the world. And he joins me now. Steve Wynn, very good to have you.
Go on and on. I was. Hi, Neil.
Yeah, right. Keep it going. Keep it going. Steve, it's good to have you. It wasn't too long ago you were commenting on the dysfunctional circus campaign season. I guess it hasn't eased up. But with 3 weeks to go and no signs that that's going to change, what do you make of the whole race?
I was reading something by Buckley, and it's rubbed off on me. And I can only say that having experienced the both candidates' political inspirations and struck by their profusion, I am now ready to believe that the earth is flat.
That's not too bad, actually.
That is to say,
you're doing it, yeah.
the thing is, I think the conversation's all wrong. I don't think that the dialogue has shown the proper respect for the process itself. What's going on in America is complicated, important, and worth serious public discussion. We take in 3.1 trillion. We spend 3.7 trillion. That leaves a gap of 500 billion or 600 billion. That's 50 billion a month in new money being printed, which is increasing the money supply and directly impacting and destroying the quality of every paycheck in America and therefore the living standard of all the people in America. That conversation is relevant, not to mention a serious discussion about globalization, trade, immigration. But instead, Neil, I feel that the exchanges have devolved. I think the conversation's all wrong, and consequently, I don't feel like I can be part of it intelligently.
Do you have a candidate you prefer? I mean, do one of the candidates' prescriptions address what you talked about more than the other?
Well, I know both people, and it would be fair to say that they're both intelligent. I tend to respect anybody who's willing to throw their hat into the public arena these days and put up with all of the contingent events that go along with public service and public campaigns. When you ask me if I have a preference, I'm so, as I mentioned a moment ago, I'm so focused on the fact that the conversation doesn't address any of the things that I think are important. I think our political dialogue in America is distorted and completely off track. So I can know the candidates, and I've enjoyed private time with Donald and certainly with Bill and Hillary Clinton. Melania Trump is an elegant, lovely woman, and Trump has done a fabulous job with his children, which you and I both know is an achievement all by itself.
Absolutely.
So these people all have something to recommend them. I don't tend to pay as much. It seems to me that on the subject of the presidential sexual contact behavior, that being oversexed seems to be a qualification for a president the past two generations. But what I'm looking for.
So will all the charges that have come up against Donald Trump in that regard, you don't think they're worth getting into? That's a waste of time?
Look, this discussion of the sex lives of our politicians is a distraction. I played golf with Chris Dodd several years ago in the midst of the Clinton controversies while the president was in his second term and the Monica Lewinsky issues were floating around. And on the 18th green, I said to Chris Dodd, who was a senator, of course, at the time, and a very important one, we ought to stop talking about sex with our politicians. People always lie about sex. And then Chris Dodd looked up at me, Neil, and said, Steve, some people lie during sex. I thought that was pretty cool.
And that was
as
then.
far
But
as
I guess but you're right. It's become part of the subject here as an exploration of Hillary Clinton's emails, and Donald Trump has come out to say, I'm getting a raw deal. This is a rigged process. Disproportionate number of stories on me, none on her that are controversial. Even going so far as to question whether the voting is going to be rigged in this country. How do you feel about that?
Well, if in fact there was serious voter fraud in America, I don't think there's a person in this country that wouldn't be really up in arms about it, including myself. We have known for many, many years that there's mischief afoot in some of the urban precincts, going back to the Kennedy election in '60, which I covered as a news director of the radio station at the University of Pennsylvania, where I went. But to suggest that this has now reached epidemic proportions is a troubling assertion, and I hope it's not true. And the idea that it might be true is frightening.
Well, Steve, the president commented on Donald Trump's musings in that regard, saying that he ought to quit whining and state his case to the American people. What did you think of that?
I think that President Obama is very facile on all issues that are political. I wish that he was as direct and as prompt in his responses to the major issues that face the country as he is on issues that bear political relevance. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah, that's pretty direct there. Let me get your sense of Donald Trump and his tax situation. And you're very successful casino operator, hotel operator overall, and much has been made of this reported $900+ million loss back in 1995. Hillary Clinton says it's proof that he's a horrible businessman. What do you think of that?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, and as it's been discussed in the public forum, this point has not been made. People who make money in business pay tax as a percentage of their profits quite appropriately. When people lose money in business, then those losses tend to reduce overall the profitability of the business. So adjusting losses against profits to get the real profit of a business is a perfectly sound approach for tax policy. Now, the fact that we've highlighted, or we seem to have allegedly highlighted, the fact that Donald Trump's, one of his investments went very badly and he lost $900 million, I guess at his scale, you can make 900 or lose 900. But the notion that a $900 million loss should be taken against $900 million profits is perfectly logical. It's what we do in our private lives with every taxpayer. What we see in this particular subject, rather than a focused perspective discussion of the concept of business losses against business profits, instead it's become a political tool, another arsenal in this disgraceful exchange of fire that is really off the point. And that's the reason, as I said before, that I think the dialogue's all wrong. Conversation is misdirected.
One other issue that's come up in this back and forth about taxes is the rich should pay their fair share. That fair share would go all the way up to 65% on guys like you with their estates when they leave this fine world. What do you think is a fair share? Well, maybe, but what do you think of that? What is a fair share to you?
Well, it's a perfectly intelligent question. So how do we define fair share? 70% of the tax revenues paid to the United States government and income tax come from 5% of the citizens. Now, that would suggest that something unfair is going on. So when you hear a politician say fair share, you're talking about hypocritical political propaganda. You are not talking about an intelligent discussion of who is paying what and who isn't paying taxes? It's a simple subject. But this is one of those perfect examples of the distortion in conversation. I don't say that defensively because I'm a high-earning person. I've paid a couple $100 million of taxes since 2000. And I've been very lucky to be able to pay those taxes. It's a privilege to have earned the money to be able to pay the taxes. But the fact of the matter is, the minute someone talks about fair share, you're probably talking to a thief. 70% of the tax revenues on personal income tax in America are paid by 5% of the people.
So would you be more open to what Donald Trump is espousing, that where you cut the taxes across the board for everybody?
Well, first of all, I think his big tax cut was on corporate tax, if I'm not mistaken, right. Neil. It's hard to sort out the policies when you just have the TV stuff at your disposal. The corporate tax rate is one that should be addressed. For example, in business, in life, in the raising of our children or the running of a business, what do we do fundamentally? The big idea is that we encourage the behavior, we reinforce the behavior that we wish to encourage. Now, with all that money offshore, because the taxes in America are excessively high for businesses, what is wrong with saying, hey, you bring back that 2 or 3 trillion, and if you could show me that 20 cents on every dollar is going to go directly to creating a job, that's your tax. Create the job. Bring the money back. Uncle Sam won't collect a dime. Go create jobs. Create more taxpayers. People that create jobs create taxpayers, which benefits society as a whole.
That's a very good point. Neil, so it sounds like your philosophy, but your philosophy seems more in line with Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton. Am I right?
Not necessarily. Well, I thought you were going to say it's more in line with Trump than Clinton. I'd be very anxious to have a private conversation with Hilly. That's what Bill calls his wife.
Well, that's
Hillary,
what I meant. So I thought more in Donald Trump, more in keeping with Donald Trump, that his policies, his economic views are more your own.
But that's the point. I haven't had this conversation with Hillary Clinton, and I think it would be fascinating to have the conversation with her, because I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Hillary Clinton didn't agree. But the God lives in the details. What do you do with the money that you bring back tax-free from abroad? If you can prove that it's going directly to the creation of jobs, or a great portion of it is, then that benefits society at least as much as any tax might. So there's a discussion here. But we're not having it, are we, Neil? We're not having it.
No, we're not. We started at something here. No. But, Stephen, I want to thank you very, very much. The issues that Steve Wynn raised at Wynn Resorts, you think they'll bring that up in the debate tomorrow?